Okay, so now we're into part 2 of tools, chapter 2 in the book, and we're going to talk about pliers. This book talks about linesman pliers pretty heavily, and from an electrical standpoint, especially if you're doing electrician's work, handling 16, 12 gauge or heavier wires, especially solid core wires, you will need a linesman plier. And these are big heavy duty pliers. They're sort of your electrician's tool being used as a hammer in many cases, though they absolutely don't recommend that, and other things as well. I personally don't have a linesman pliers in my everyday toolkit. I keep a big heavy duty pair of needle nose pliers. The needle nose pliers have cutters as well as the big, strong, heavy needle nose, and it works like a linesman pliers in many aspects for the range of wires that I use, which is generally not heavier than 10 gauge. Long nose pliers, that's what these are. Diagonal cutting pliers, useful skills. Slip joint pliers are, we call them channel locks. Channel lock is actually a brand name, just like crescent wrench. You shouldn't use it for all slip joint pliers. They are extremely useful for all things plumbing. In fact, also probably the most useful plier from a general purpose standpoint to keep in your toolkit would be a mid-sized channel lock or a slip joint plier. Tongue and groove plier is the specific type of slip joint for the channel locks. Locking plier wrenches. Now that's a bizarre way of saying it. Everyone calls them vice grips. Having a good heavy duty vice grip is absolutely critical as well. You're always going to see one of those in my kit. Don't buy the cheap ass vice grips. They're garbage. They don't work. They're worse than having no vice grip at all. Having a decent vice grip is worth it. Vice grip brand is still the best brand out there. So that's like the one case I'm going to recommend a brand for a particular plier. Hammers, there's a lot to read. Most people are familiar with regular old claw hammers for doing carpentry work, pulling out nails. A ball peen hammer is one where it's originally designed for peening over rivets. So it's from the era when riveting was the common way of attaching pieces of steel together. Ball peen hammers are still useful for beating on things. Very few people peen over rivets. Peening is the process of taking the round end and melding, like kind of banging the rivet around the round end to smash out the rivet head to cause it to adhere in the hole. Chisels, punches, and files. Punches are absolutely critical. Files are important, but less so these days because of the common usage of power tools. Chisels are less so. A good cold chisel will help you shear a steel bolt and can be very, very useful. Having a good quality punch is critical for doing any metal work, and we're going to be using punches in our first labs. Files, this is another little tidbit where they give you all these different styles of files. I've only ever used, two styles of files, either a coarse or a fine. This is a fine file. I tend to go to garage sales and buy these when people just about give them away and then keep them in various toolboxes. So I always have a fine and a coarse style file around with me. Having a big heavy duty file like this, in this case, this one's probably 16 inches long, it really helps you move a lot of material quickly by being able to drive across the entire workpiece. And this is designed for steel, soft steel filing down, but you can use a file on hard steel as well. And they spend a lot of time giving you lots of little tidbits and files types, and that's a case where I'm not going to recommend that you do anything in terms of files except keep a basic one in your toolbox. Hacksaw, very useful to keep in your toolbox. I have two styles of hacksaws. One is an ordinary type, and one is a type where it's basically just a handle wrapped around the blade, and the handle wrapped around the blade I keep in my travel kit, and I found it very useful for making quick steel cuts all the time. You will be using a hacksaw in your lab. They do have some hacksaw facts. Hacksaws, if you run them too fast, will overheat and you will ruin the teeth pretty rapidly. So this is a fun fact that I learned in this book. They recommend that there should be no more than 1 downward stroke per second. So if you're going with the hacksaw, that's too fast and you potentially ruin the teeth by overheating them. So you should be going 1 stroke per second on cutting with a hacksaw, which is a fun fact that I never quite realized I probably should have known before reading this book. Measurement devices, like I said earlier, we're not going to go through because we're covering that elsewhere. Power tools, they hit on a handful of power tools. Read this section. The hand tools they really talk about are your portable drill. That is probably your most common device out in the field. You're going to see your battery drills everywhere now. Battery drills, I actually like my battery drill because it's stronger than the low-end electric plug-in drills with a larger, I can put like a 1/2-inch diameter drill bit in there. So it's a really powerful tool, and you're going to see plug-in drills very few and far between out in the real world, except for big heavy-duty ones. Read about these others, the portable bandsaw and the regular bandsaw. Reciprocating saw is my favorite tool for destroying stuff. It's called a Sawzall. Read about it. I'll pull one out and we'll talk about how to use it safely. It's good for cutting through wood, through steel and wood together, like wood with nails in it. It's a very powerful tool for demolition, and it can be used for cutting holes in boxes and that sort of thing as well. I've used it for that purpose. The right angle grinder is probably your most versatile, inexpensive tool. You can buy these so cheaply now. You can buy a cheap right angle grinder that will last you 10 or 20 years from Home Depot or from Harbor Freight for under $20, and sometimes as little as $10. This is probably the most ubiquitous tool that's in use out there in the field. You can put a variety of blades on them, and they're dangerous. They are dangerous to use. You have to be careful. You have to know what you're doing, because generally speaking, they don't have a lot of guard on a high portion of that blade when you're cutting things. So you have to hold them properly, keep them angled away, keep it so that the spray of sparks and debris is not going into your eyes. And last but not least, circular saw they go through. Circular saw can be used for cutting concrete, tile, and wood. Chances are most of you guys have used the circular saw. I'm not going to dive into that. So all I'm saying is this: when you're talking about right angle grinder or circular saw, remember your glasses. Do not ever use these tools without appropriate safety, which is, as a minimum, glasses like these.